This is the Pitchside Prospects. Welcome to the 5th episode.
And you know what's funny? Even after 5 episodes, we're still getting the basics wrong.
Yeah, I would say each week has been a new journey about how we could be better. Right?
For sure.
And that's what Kaizen's all about. It's like being 1% better each day, and that 1% will add up. Also, like, giving yourself a break when stuff is adding on. I think we talked about it in our last podcast. It's like we're in the mid-season grind right now, and I feel like we just gotta give yourself a break, but still push yourself to make more than just ends meet. Get ahead when and where you can.
So let's talk about the little weekend review. Now that you brought up how we're in mid-season right now, almost going into the final couple weeks of the season, how did your weekend go this weekend?
Yeah, my weekend was filled with lots of different experiences on the field. I had the 9-year-olds again, which was a good game. I thought we played really, really well. Played together for most of the time and scored a lot of team-oriented goals. Unfortunately lost the game, but there was a lot of growth that we made in the details in that game. Particularly like with the center back when he was driving and dribbling past his first opponent. For the last few weeks we've been talking about what do you do when you beat that first guy, and he's been kind of like ambitious enough to take on the second, take on the third. He's a good player, and those have led to goals.
It's about the player that is equally strong both defensively and offensively.
Well,
is that the mid?
No, that player is just that. He's good offensively and defensively. You have to remember, he's a center back. We play 7v7. If we push him to their half, he can be in a space that's like a midfielder. It's no problem. Not that he's ahead of the midfielder, but that the whole block is pushed forward. But we've been working for weeks on his ability to decide what to do with the ball after he beats his first man. And for weeks I've been saying, hey, you just got to look up and wide. You got to realize that when you dribble, you attract your opponent, and you're in the middle of the field, so naturally you're going to attract players to the center, creating space on the wide areas. Simple enough to understand.
Especially at that young age when they're 9 years old and all of the players are attracted by one thing.
And so space opens up, and if you are to dish it or open your hips and play it, now you're creating advantage in that space, both positionally for the player that's on the wide area. Could be a fullback, could be a winger. Don't know how you play or what your shape is in that moment. For us, it's a fullback that pushes higher because we play 3-2-1. And so for him, in that game, although we lost, he showed 3 or 4 different moments. It was amazing. Where he's able to, boom, problem solved. All right, that player understands this. We can move on to what to do when the ball is now in this area. So there was growth in that game, and I was excited to see that, happy to see that. Covered another game for 2009, won this game. It was a strong group.
So you didn't mention the win last game, so you lost that game, right?
I did lose. I thought I had said I lost the game.
It's all right. That's okay.
I'm almost positive I said that I lost the game with the youngers twice.
Ooh.
So,
check the tape.
Yeah,
check the tape.
We'll have to check. I'm pretty sure I said it twice. But with the 2009 cover game, we won. It was 3-1, and that team was just, we were better than the other team. The physical attributes of the team I was coaching were stronger, and the technical attributes as well. So realistically, it felt like when I got there, I just had to make sure they were properly prepared for the warm-up. They understood they were there to play a good game and be serious about the objectives at hand. And as long as I held them up to that in every moment, I just kind of like gave them a little 2 cents about what I thought they did after each play, and we got out of there with a good win. So that was a fun one, and yeah, no, it was a good weekend, I think. 2 games, not too many, and both different experiences, younger and older, so it was fun.
That's nice. I was fortunate enough to see my team, my oldest team, get a comeback win. The first time this season.
There was nothing better than that. Huh?
And like it was 2-0. So that's like the generic, that's a scoreline that always gets turned around, and I'll be honest with you. I didn't tell that to my players in the second half
It
or
is
in the
a common
halftime.
score to flip. It's the 2-0 lead.
Statistically,
flips a lot. Yeah.
Statistically, it's the one that always flips.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to tell that to my players because I feel like it maybe gives them that feeling of, oh, it's given to us, so it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But we have to have that confidence of like, we're gonna do the right things to make it happen. And the one thing that I really told my team this weekend was, cannot concede another goal, because what does that goal like feel like consciously in your head?
It's the mental gut punch.
Yeah,
right?
oh, for
That
sure.
is the mental gut punch.
How one of my players described it, it's the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that's right.
That 3-0
That's
is like...
actually, when we scored our third goal with the 09s, I turned, because the head coach arrived for the last 5 minutes.
Okay.
And we scored the third goal when he arrived, and I turned to him and I went like this, like... So yeah, it's the nail in the coffin for sure. I feel that.
And I just wanted to bring that point to my players. We scored 3 goals in the last 15 minutes. One of our better players, he actually got a hat trick in that time. And I made that point to my players, like, why would the 3-0 be the nail in the coffin if we were just able to score 15 in 3 minutes? Or in 3 in 15 minutes.
Well, and in all realness, it isn't, because there are games that turn 4-0 to 4-4.
Poof.
And they're known as these great matches of history, but, like, they happen. And so we were just actually watching a Premier League review game that ended 4-4.
Yeah.
And that game was a freaking battle, back and forth, like a tennis match. But, you know, you have to have the belief that you can do it. We've talked about this before. You have to understand a goal can be scored in 60 seconds or less if you do it well and you do it right. And I think the internal motivation to keep going, even though the chips are down, is the true power that gets you over the triumph.
Hump.
The hump or the triumph.
Yeah.
Like, you need to consistently stay motivated in that negative circumstance that you and your team can overcome it. And then that's when you'll be able to, like, turn 2-0, 3-2, 3-0, 4-3. Even, like, I remember a game. I was in high school. I believe it was a JV team in my second or third year coaching with the high school teams that I was coaching, my beginning of my career. And it was a rainy game away at a high school. We were already down 3-0 at half. And the way that I had told them we were going to do this is, like, I posed the question, is how do you eat an elephant? And that's a common question statement, used. How do you eat an elephant? And everybody's looking at me like, what? And it's like, it's one bite at a time. Like,
they didn't know the answer.
Yeah, no, they're looking at me dumbfounded, like, Coach, you're tripping right now.
What is Coach talking about right now?
Yeah, we're down 3-0, he's talking about how do you eat an elephant. And I'm like, guys, seriously, like, how do you eat an elephant? I'm, like, dialed in, and I mean it, and, well, it's one bite at a time. And they're, like, looking at me again, like, what does this guy mean? Like, he's tripping. And I go, no, it just means that we're going to go into the second half, and we're going to hunt for the first one. Just one goal. Whether it's on a press situation, a long ball, we play in, we play out. Remember, earlier in my career, I did whatever we had to do to win. I wasn't necessarily putting teaching over winning. I was player coach trying to win with that high school. And we had a lot of successful years.
But, I mean, at that level, wouldn't you say that is what you're trying to do? Beside, like, obviously you want to teach your players, but at a high school level where you're representing your school.
There's a pride that leads to wanting to win a little more. And especially since I went to that high school as a high schooler, I had that pride still built into me while I was coaching. And I wanted to win for the school. I had that built in because I had went there. But I remember being in that game and explaining to them, we're just going to do it one goal at a time. We have 40 minutes here. It was JV team, so 80-minute games. We have 40 minutes here. Let's break it down into 10 to 15-minute segments. If we can get one in each of those segments, we're on track. So no anxiety building, no panic kicking, no I'm going to do it myself. One goal at a time. And lo and behold, 10 minutes in, we got the first one. All right, we're good. But guys, we're still on time. We have things that we need to do here. Boom, get a PK, 2. We're within 25 minutes. We have 15 to go. Now the pressure's on them. The anxiety's on the
Oh
opponent.
no, because they're already
Momentum
feeling
has
it here.
flipped.
Yeah.
This is in our favor now, and we have already explained at half how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So now we're focused on only one thing, equalizing. One more goal. We're not thinking about a fourth at all. You know what I'm saying?
Because why think about the thing that hasn't even happened yet?
We're just, this is what's right in front of us, right here, right now. And I remember equalizing kind of like with 7 or 5 left, something like that. And obviously, like, containing my sideline becomes almost impossible. The energy starts to build.
Well, son, imagine you as a coach. Your energy is probably go through the roof with them as well.
But I'm containing it because I'm leading this charge, and we still are here to play, and there's minutes left in the match. So I can't have players bouncing off the bench and running onto the field in celebration. The game's not over. We could still lose. And so there's a sense of like containing that energy and focusing it into the objective that, again, is still at hand. Because how do we eat this elephant is one bite at a time. And now with 5 minutes left, let's go get a fourth. There's time. We talked about this. And lo and behold, boom, we get that fourth. We get out of there 4-3. And again, that's 7 years ago in my coaching career. So those moments are big, you know. There's something to, like you said, hold that excitement or have that excitement and share it. You hold on to that actually for a long period of time. You know, I talk about what is the greatest thing in football. We talked about, well, the relationships you make, but also kind of like winning it all or making it to that peak. And when you succeed in a comeback, it feels something similar to that.
No, and it's like all the boys, you know, all the lads putting it on the table. Like you couldn't have done it if little Jimmy or little Johnny made a mistake, and not being afraid to make those mistakes, even if you're under the cosh. That for me is what's key. I had my keeper doing pirouettes.
Yeah, you told me that.
And doing back heels outside the box in the second half when we're 2-0 down, and it's like I'm like. Not saying anything because, you know,
did he lose the ball?
And he didn't.
So there you go.
But, you know, I wish I had the words to say it, but I couldn't say it. But I'm just, like, sitting there while all the parents have their heart in their mouth and just like, what are you doing there, buddy? And I just got quiet, and just like, hey, well done. Good job. That's all I can say.
If he didn't lose the ball and he showed a bit of flair, it may be out of position, it may be risky and kind of far from what you need when you're 2-0 down. But then again, you want to have players express themselves and their freedom within the sport. Start taking that away, and you start taking the love of the game away.
And then what happens after that?
They quit. And
for sure.
There's nothing worse than watching or being part of a player's departure from the game,
because you're like there. You're pushing them off a cliff almost.
You're there for the opposite reason. You're there to share a love, you know, not break it. And so there's nothing more disheartening when you hear a player quit. Like there's so many different circumstances to which that can occur, but it's something I think we could talk about on a podcast as a whole. It's something that is heartbreaking when you hear it.
And well, that's a nice, easy burnout title. Because
that's only one of the many ways that players end up quitting is the burnout. Like there's pressures and that.
You don't consider that part of burnout?
No, because there's a different kind of burnout, you know, and it comes from different states. Like whether it's a parent pressure or it's a pressure of competitive spirit.
Well, that sounds like an amazing podcast that we could talk about.
For me, I had a period of time in my life where I had succeeded something I never thought I would, and then a fire kind of dimmed inside of me, as if you didn't need to become a pro. Actually, you accomplished this amazing college feat, and that might have been all you really needed in your life to feel like you accomplished the soccer thing. And then this flame inside of you kind of doesn't dwindle, but it changes, and there's all kinds of burnouts and why and where, and so that's why I said you hear about different situations, and there's different reasons in which that can occur, and Yeah, I think it's a deeper talk than we'd spend on this podcast because
because we can get so, like you said, just so deep into all the different situations and scenarios
some really
that players
emotional situations that players face that led them to leaving the game, and it's tough, man, when you hear about those things.
Well, let's talk about. I know we want to talk about the goals of what we're trying to get out of this podcast, but I just want to talk with you. How do you think the progression of your team and the goals that you set out for your own team is going in reflection?
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Like our team, the 2014s, they're 9. They realistically only had 5 weeks to get prepared for this season, and playing in a league that
any tournament before the season.
So I'll get into that in a moment, but like that's the amount of time we had to prepare for the Flight 2 league, and that's a very competitive league for where we were at. And so in those 5 weeks, we played 4 tournaments. I picked up the team obviously late, as in late in the summer and close to the season.
Late in the preseason.
Yeah, and so there was literally, this team missed maybe 2 to 3 months of training, playing, everything.
Preparation in general.
Period. And I've had to expedite that to some extent to get them season ready. But also I've worked on the expectations and communications with the parents of what we should expect from this group. And when I set that bar in my mind and with the parents of what we should be looking for, I think we've already kind of exceeded what was to be expected of the group. Obviously, we want results to turn, but for the trained eye, you see a team that wasn't playing football before now playing football in many different facets and dimensions. Like, they can understand when to build out and when to cross, when to take on their one-on-ones, the recognizing positional advantages and using that terminology.
Yeah, at the age of 9,
yeah.
That is deep.
Yeah, and there's like, I have maybe 3 or 4 players now that I feel like I couldn't even ask a question that they wouldn't know the answer to. Like, you pose a question within your training session to bring thought towards a concept. And I have 4 9-year-olds that got it like that. And I'm asking, so what are the 3 versions of gathering information on the football field? And they're like, oh, coach, we got it. Body orientation, vision, yeah, communication.
I love all the details that you're getting into right here.
Wow. But I've been with them, for 3 months. So to have 4 kids at 9 responding in that nature in my world of football, and then watching them slowly build upon 7, 8, 9 pass sequences that lead from build out to shot, we're well exceeded where I thought we would be. Although maybe expectations this far in the league are like we should start winning games, and
it's a slow process.
I'm gonna be honest, I feel like I've given this team or these players even individually more in the last 3 months that we spent than you would have if we focused on winning games, because I would have been playing players to their specific traits. And like we lost this weekend to a team who utilized the build-out line, which for those of you who don't know, it's another line past the half in which dictates offsides and where the players have to be behind in order to press during a goal kick. An opponent...
Well said.
Thank you. That was tough. That was actually really tough. But like, I had an opponent that after 20 minutes of playing with us, interplay, we're going to teach the kids how to win open body and when to play and who to pick out, where's the free man. He realized after 20 minutes that he's going to post this player behind my final line, use the build-out line as that offsides line. It's not my last defender. And when they recover the possession, they hit it and go on a breakaway. And rather than drop my line, I was focused on all the actions that my team has to learn when having the ball. And call me crazy or call me too focused on one side of it, but that's all I want to teach them.
Maybe a little crazy because you're
how to play with the ball.
What's the definition of being insane?
It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But
you're not trying to. I mean, I guess you are expecting different results because you want them to.
I am expecting different results, and I'll tell you why. When they go to 99, that build-out line, excuse my language, goes away. And now you got to play my final line again. And so I'm teaching my boys in the sense of that's what's going to be next year. So let's learn how to do it now. And we squeeze the opponent into the space. And regardless that there's another line that dictates offsides, that's just, I'm not going to bring my center back or my whole shape back just because one guy is standing back there. No. I'll treat it like in an 11v11 game when your far winger is open or the opponent's far winger is open. You say sometimes it's okay to pinch and leave them because when the ball travels, we can travel with it. But realistically,
if that player is too good, then that's when you get exposed.
And this is a 7v7 field, which is very small, and those spaces aren't as realistic to cover when the ball is played. So I don't expect my defenders to actually win that. I hope that the keeper makes a great save, or I hope that the opponent gets blocked because my team is orchestrated to press in the 6-second rule. As soon as we lose it, press immediately the closest 3 players, try to get that player who's looking far to put his head down quicker rather than later so he can't get that long ball off. He has to have his head down, focused on the pressure at hand. So, yeah,
expectations, you've been met.
We're
and I gotta say that my expectations, like, for me being a first-year coach, like, really having a somewhat of a preseason, not as bad or not as well or unprepared as yours. I probably had a month more than you in my preseason, which adds up.
That's a good amount of time.
But for me to have my first oldest team, which is a age range that is not far away from me, and people know that the closer you are as a coach and your players, the less respect or the more rapport you have to make with them.
It's harder to gain said respect of those players.
So for me being my first year, having my own team and making my own environment, I think my expectations have been met.
Yeah,
and exceeded.
Yeah,
100%.
No, and I remember being in that stage. It's a lot of fun when you're close to age of the team that you coach, which is a rare occurrence, but also a fun experience.
It's pretty exciting.
There is a level of accountability the players have with you, knowing that you are so close to their age. There's not always this automatic, I'm going to listen to you, I respect what you have to say, and I'm going to learn from what your football is. You have to earn and prove that. And usually when you're an older coach and you come in, that is given a little bit more.
Of course.
Intuitively or initially. As a younger coach, it's really built. And I remember my second year of coaching, that's when I picked up my first club teams. I was 21, and those players were 16, 17, 18. I was only the head coach of one of them, but at the same time, I was running sessions in all of them. So the experience you have with the players is, well, I got to show you that I know better than you, but also that I'm here to help you grow. And that's a fun, exciting experience because you show up every day ready to prove to them that you can be their teacher, that you have something to give them and lead them for. So, it's almost this level of accountability that leads to better work to your coaching, or not better work, but
No, you gotta heighten your senses and you gotta be turned on. You gotta be turned on because if you're turned off, then the whole session, the whole team is turned off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you could say that it's even like that with the youngers because they feed off of your energy.
It's a little more like that with the youngers.
If you don't give them that positive energy, we're like, all right, boys, we gotta go. My team this weekend, we were out energized. The other team used more energy than us. And it showed in the field by them just wanting the ball more.
Mm.
And
that's a shame.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Because in hindsight, it's like, what did I do wrong? How did I not prepare them properly for them to want it more?
Game 4 in tournaments, I always feel that way. Like, what did I do wrong? How did I mismanage this energy?
You want to explain what a Game 4 is?
Well, Game 4 in a tournament is if you had played Saturday 2 and won both or whatever, tied in 1, and then went in on Sunday on the Game 3, which would kind of be essentially in a tournament bracket, like your semifinal. Not necessarily, but usually. And if you win that game, first game on Sunday, you lead to the tournament final. That's usually how tournaments are organized.
Game 4.
Which would be game 4. Lately, some tournaments have expanded into 3-day tournaments: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday,
Labor
Sunday,
Day weekend.
Monday. And the games could be either 5. Game 5 would be your final, and there would be one group played on Sunday, one semifinal played on Sunday, and then you'd come back on Monday for your final, which then could be game 5. But game 4 or game 5 would be essentially your cup final, right? On game 4, I'm always watching the team play, and their energy is obviously depleted. They've played 3 games already this weekend. This is a big game. There's a lot of energy and emotion tied into it because it's a final usually and a trophy to be won. And you can really see in depth where those players are lacking energy because, you've been watching them for 3 previous games already this weekend, and they're not able to accomplish certain actions or movements or runs that they were able to do in the previous games. It's a human body just doing what it does. It can only do so much, right? So it's always a question that I pose on game 4 in those days, like, how could I manage this energy, the physical load of the players throughout the weekend better? And you need to give that deep thought.
So while you're talking about this, I want to talk about why do teams that are good teams not control the tempo well enough? And if I'm going to describe what the tempo of the game is, it is the sound of the ball and the movement of how the ball is being played. So like the speed at which our passes are going and the timing of which our passes are being executed.
There's many reasons why a team can control the tempo of the ball. It could be that the pressure of the opponent is extremely high, and they're not giving up, and your quality and technique isn't able to keep up with the speed of the pressure. So the tempo gets increased by the pressuring opponents, and you can't keep that tempo.
So that's when you gotta break the tempo and actually break the press?
Sure, but even if you play long, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to keep it in that moment. Then it becomes like the center back's, fullback's job to battle the striker's 9s to win the first, win the second. In that moment, then transition becomes an occurrence. But controlling tempo is managing physical load and energy.
Of course, because imagine if you're hitting the ball long all the time.
That's not just it. It's managing how you want to play, where you want to play, when you want to play. It's recognizing when certain players get the ball and knowing that my teammate plays a certain way. When this guy gets it in this space,
that's a detail right there.
He's going to take 4 or 5 touches before he does anything. So I'm going to have a little extra time to run, and I need to know that so I don't end up off sides, or that I don't wait too long to support him, or that I don't support him too soon and get in his way, because those kinds of things that those kind of players do. They do things on their own for just a quick moment, then they create an advantage with their qualitative ability, which means I'm just better than you, quality. And that's where then you need to know how they play and how to work off of them to create success. Tempo is created through that as well. The understanding of your teammates. So like controlling tempo for my team when we're in possession sessions, which are most of them, but I meant to say possession context drills. There's a moment that I use in the training, and you've heard it before, where I go, the tempo. It needs to sound like something. And sometimes I'll even stop the boys and go, what's this? And I'm like, well, no, coach. Or some of them after a while will be like, that's the sound of the ball. It's how it's supposed to sound when we receive and we play. Ba-ba, 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 ba-ba. So there's a tempo to it. And we're not up to speed with said tempo right now. So get there. And now they can use this kind of like hearing sound ability to know if they're on pace or not. So,
one detail that I've been trying to get my team, which I see professional teams do, because they are able to match the other team's tempo and actually play through the press. But I haven't seen a lot of teams like put their soul on the ball and like actually let the other team come to them and then break them through that. You could say taunting. You could say it's inviting the other team to come to you. I have not seen that much.
It's not inviting. You choose to press in a situation like that.
But what I don't see is the patience from one team to be able to like play inside the back, play with them like with their teammates. And I don't know if that's because coaches want the ball to be up as fast as possible.
That's right. Because I don't care. My teams play in the back all the time. It builds no anxiety with inside of me. But my parents, that's a different story. Other coaches, it's a different story. The players, it's my job to get them to feel how I feel. It's not a worry. So we play in the back often.
That's awesome.
And even like 6-7 pass sequences, like 4v2 with the keeper against the 2 strikers. We're not like, we need to beat this line, because lately I've been trying to teach my 9-year-olds how to utilize the keeper in possession. So if they just feel like knocking around that 4v2 for some time, I'm not saying a thing. I'm actually like, yeah, and I'm building.
You're like when the fans at the end of the game are like, ole, you're goading the other team, man.
Not necessarily, but I'm truly praising my boys because I like to see
it's
that
a praiseworthy action. That is most definitely a praiseworthy action.
And now they're utilizing the 7th man, so it's like, oh yeah. Actually, that looks like the ball moved when I was at Barcelona. That looks like it moved. It's 77, the younger players, but that's the sequences I saw. The same thing right there and then in that 4v2. There it was. Bop, 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 bop. So yeah, and that's the tempo, right? At that age, they can't maintain tempo for 60 minutes. No way.
Oof.
No chance. Like that group is going to have phases in which they mismanage tempo, lose tempo, get gas, all of those things, the opponent's momentum swings. So then they'll eventually have to find it again, either by communicating together, or we get a break, we get to talk about it, or by chance.
I remember my point now. My point was, so if you actually could control the tempo of the game and be able to turn it on and turn it off whenever the team knows, wouldn't that be a better load management and a way to actually preserve your team for a longer weekend where you're actually going to play multiple games?
Yes and no. I guess you could do that also through substitutions, managing energies and physical loads of the team by game 4s, by managing substitutions in games that you've already
I guess it depends the tournament that we're playing, because some tournaments have rules.
Such a deep kind of, in a sense, deep conversation, and because you can go with many avenues of why, the variables.
Yeah.
Because whether it's like the tempo, or whether it's the physical load, or whether it's managing whether your team presses so much throughout the games to get there. You remember last season we had a player, our captain on one of our groups, that was supposed to dictate when we started our press, and we wouldn't press every time. It was up to him to say now, or when he would jump to this player, that was the cue for us to know this is when we're going to increase the tempo. The other times that we increase tempo is when I've decided as a coach the momentum swing is up for grabs. The transition of the momentum is up for grabs right now. I'm going to actually take this moment to dictate you and say, go, go, go. We're hunting now. And if I don't see my whole group go, they're going to get it from me. They're going to know it. Because we press together in order to create success. Everyone knows that in football. Not that you all 6 just go like a madman straight to ball, but we all press and start closing down spaces as we're checking our shoulders and maintaining, cutting off passing lanes. So we're blocking and closing space. And if all 6 are doing that are on the field, it's likely we're going to win the ball closer to the opponent's net, higher up the field. That's a concept, that within my style of play, or like the positional possession, we talk about quite often. But you have to choose as a coach where you stand on how high, how often your pressure tempo is going to be.
Oh, of course.
Right? And
if it's not detailed, if you don't go into where and when and why and how, you're going to get beat in those moments.
I'd imagine Liverpool's team expends more energy in a game on press than Man City's. But I'd imagine that Man City expends more energy in possession than Liverpool. even though Liverpool probably plays just a slightly bit more direct football, they're still very good at playing channels, angles, and being aggressive. I think that Man City probably expends a little more energy in that phase, and Liverpool probably spends a little more energy expending in pressing phase.
Well, now that we got into a lot of details, I think we should go into details of the attacking phase and something that you wanted to talk about, and I'll just leave it up to you.
Yeah, so I guess the one thing I wanted to talk about in details within the attacking phase is the one thing that came to thought or mind for me was position-specific attacking details, and I really thought to myself that, like, well, what do I know about that stuff is all from my first-hand experience both as a player and a coach. And then to detail or microscope in on that, what position did I play was left winger, and I did that for pretty much my entire soccer career up until my sophomore year in college, after we had won everything and received or got a lot of talented freshmen coming in. I had to take on a different role for the team. But for the previous, and I take that back. When I started club soccer for the first 4 years, I was a center back, and a really good one at that. But then all the other kids kept growing, and I couldn't play center back anymore. And it was all right. Like, for 4 years there, I had my glory days where I grew quick and early and had size, and then
so you felt those days.
I did. I was a period in time when I was a tall king, not a short king.
Rip.
And then through middle school and high school, everybody kept going, and I was done early, man. I was like,
Coach benched you early, man.
But a prime part of my career was spent on the left wing, particularly number 11. You would see me right-footed winger on the left side pretty much every game. I just really did not like playing on the right side. I despised it. And although you're supposed to play wherever your coach feels you're best, and if they ask you if they want to serve more crosses in, then that's why you're going to play on the right, then you do it, because that's what they're looking for in the group, and you do it. But from the left side, I had developed quite a lot of details within what I created success doing. Like, I knew that my job probably had to run close to the most in the game. Like, every winger, when you talk about wingers, you have to consider the form that you're playing in, meaning the formation. And in a 4-2-3-1, you pinched in a little bit more, and you're not expected to get back as much. You're expected to come in and pinch in the center pocket when you drop.
But I don't like that.
You're not doing this thing on the line.
But I don't like that some wingers, they just they have that freedom to float. And
that's
the
not
only
a winger to me.
the only way that you're able to be that guy is if you are that guy.
That's a 10 to me.
No, I'm saying I guess float. I mean not pressing or not dropping back and being in a structure.
I'm not saying that he's not doing that. His structure and dropping back is if he's playing in a 4-2-3-1 and he's up, and then sometimes he's not coming back out wide to drop, which means he's not covering the line like this, right? He's dropping centrally and pinching. If it comes on his side and then it goes out to the fullback, he's going to have to be one of those pressing players to go out and meet the player. But the work is different in a 4-4-2 and you're the left wing, or in a 4-3-3 and you're the high wide winger. You're literally up and down that line.
Which is what we expect.
For me, in my style, yes, the wingers should be creating height and width, right, at most times. When I was a player, I learned a couple things that I was very good at. I was very, very fast with the ball. So you could clock me. You could clock me at speeds, a regular sprint without the ball and with the ball, and I was in equal speed. I wasn't any slower. So
that's clutch.
It was crazy, actually, when I realized early in my high school career that's a trait I had. I could dribble with the ball at speed and keep little tiny touches going. So I could keep very close control of it as I was going. I utilized that trait and ability. Remember, you focus on a trait, it brings something to the team, to create success on the wing. So a lot of the time, I wasn't a player. You can't play it into space for me. That's not where I'm going to get my distance created on my fullback. You're going to have to give it to my feet, and I'm going to create that space with the ball at my feet. You can't play it to space. Give it to me. which meant I had to be very good at creating my own space. This is done with movement off the ball. You have to move consistently. I would relate myself to like a gnat on the field when I was playing winger. A little tiny gnat that when the ball actually got to his feet, you would have to foul to get the ball off my feet.
Do you want to talk about the change of speed that needs to be done at certain moments? Because what I've noticed, and I don't know if other players notice this, but let's say a player that's checking to a ball, if they're checking at a jogging speed, is that being able to create the distance between the defender and him?
It depends how much distance he had between them in the first place. So yes or no, it could be yes or no. And maybe they come in at a jogging speed makes the first touch a little simpler, not harder. So it could be a yes. It, like I was just saying, first creating space for yourself in order to get the ball to your feet starts with your movement off the ball. And like it's a mind game. If I move and I move and I move and I'm continuously scanning to know what the ball my teammates are doing, what they're looking for, all I know this guy's focused on is following me to a T. I'm coming here, I'm shifting there, I'm going there. And I'm literally looking to create 5 to 6 yards of space.
It sounds like you're playing with him almost. It sounds like
sure.
It sounds like you're going inside to the half space and you're coming back outside and you're seeing if he's going to follow or not.
And then going deeper and sometimes going off sides and then checking in and then
yeah.
checking really to my line, kind of closer to my fullback, coming wide. You know, sometimes you got to create a passing lane for your fullback, so you come wide and closer to him, and you bring this guy with you. And my fullback, I had a great relationship with one of my best friends, Davey.
I think that's a key detail to have. If you are a winger,
you gotta know each other.
Who's
you gotta
your boy?
know when I do this, you're gonna do that.
Of course.
And I don't need to say it because then this fool who's chasing me like this
knows.
So you know now that when I do, you're going to do.
What's that mean? It's like, you know that I know that you know.
That's just a social effective ability that we have when we play together for long periods of time that creates an advantage. And like in that situation, he knew if I was checking in at full speed and coming very, very close to him, there's no chance I wanted that ball. Depending on how much space I created by coming to him would dictate who he was going to play to.
His action, of course.
He was either going to play me into that space if the space was close enough for me to then cut and get into, which I use my quickness for, or if that space, the distance was really large, it was a big open gap.
That you made between you and the fullback.
In goes the 9. And my fullback, plays the gap from the space we created from me attracting the opponent's fullback. And then the 9 goes in and off he went, and my action doesn't change in that moment, right? I turn on a dime and I get underneath that 9. Like I'm making sure that I create another option for him in this offensive movement. Whether he runs out of space, cuts back and looks for someone, that'll be me. Or if he beats that guy one-on-one and starts to cut in towards the goal line, that'll be me. I'm going to get there. Me and the 9 also had a relationship that was pretty strong and knew how we needed each other to move in certain areas of the field. So again, communication is major advantage.
And not just during the game.
No,
how can you communicate things during the week?
Mm-hmm.
How can you guys talk like during practice? Like, hey, dude, like whenever we're like on the same line, how about we do this, this, and this?
No, that happens a lot actually. If you listen for it at halftime or sometimes right before the game. When I do this, I want you to go and look for that. But some of it is half concocted, and they're just preying on the thought that they visualized the night before that they want to do this.
That's great, though.
It's good.
That's awesome.
At halftime when it goes on and it's real about like, okay, they do this and the spaces look like that and you can, that's when that happens and I'm like, all right, I like what I'm hearing. I'm not going to say much. They're already talking about how to break down the opponents based on the things that they've experienced so far. What more would you want from your team?
That's a top level brain acting right there, because
and group
at that at that level, or at the level that you have to be to think like that, you're a top player. I feel like.
Yeah, and so like going back to it, I just feel like there's a lot of, when you're playing winger, a lot of ways to create advantages. I liked playing on the left side as a right footer because I utilized the line, the sideline as like my best friend to maintain possession. So again, I was very good at dribbling with the ball at speed.
With both feet or just your right foot?
With both feet. But, I couldn't cross at my full speed with my left. I couldn't necessarily rip an outside of the box shot with my left. Anything within the box, good. I could curve. I could direct a hit with my left. So arguably really good on both feet. In dribbling, very good with both feet when the ball was very close to my body.
That must be a key for a winger because let's say, imagine I have a right-footed player that actually, I talked about this with yesterday and went into detail. He usually plays on the right-hand side on the wing, and he's able to cut back as a right-footed right winger because his foot, where he's dribbling the ball, is hugging the sideline, and the fullback is usually on the goal side of him, meaning that he's protecting the ball with his left foot or his body.
Yeah.
And I actually put him on the left side yesterday, and he was trying to dribble with his foot that is inside of the pitch, closest to the defender, and him not being able to dribble with his left foot meant that it was harder for him to protect the ball.
Yeah.
And so being able to do those two actions on your side, being the left side, is key.
Being on the left side, I used my right foot as a decoy more than I used it as my advantage. And again, I'll go back to saying that I used my left foot or the sideline as like my maintaining of possession. So like it's obvious that if I play close to the line, I'm creating as much width as I can for my team. But what most players maybe don't consider is that when you're on the line there and you have possession of the ball, the defender's at the disadvantage. It's one of the few times, there's a lot of advantages you create as a winger in that one-on-one moment. But whenever you're, even your back to him in the fullback has his, he's on your back and you have to turn in order to create an advantage here. If you're by the line, I still got the advantage if I'm the winger. Because I know that if he pokes it, he makes a tackle to defend, not recover. It's my ball. Throw in. We're taking 10 more yards. Thank you. I'll take that.
Look at that, and you kept the ball for your team, which is the most important, right?
And I'm confident in my movement, too, during a throw-in. So I know that I have certain actions that I'm runs and decoy runs that I'm going to make in order to create space where I then get the ball, and we're going to do it again.
I think that
I used to run my team up the sideline through throw-ins often. We just, another one. And I'd be like, give me it. Come in front of somebody, bam, off of them.
I think that's something that is really undervalued in our game. Because people don't care about throw-ins as much. And imagine if you are able to just get into the other team's half by doing those little stupid, throw it off of him, we just gained 5 yards.
I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I know it's an alarming rate or a low number percentage.
60% of throw-ins
are usually lost.
Yes, they are.
It's an alarming number, right? And for me, that's a moment where, I don't know if you ever looked around as a coach, it's obvious after you've been coaching for some time. Whenever you earn a throw-in, all 20 players, field players, move the yardage in which you've gained.
It's a must.
It's a block move. It's a block move. So if I got this throw in here, the fullback took the throw, I earned another here, just 10 yards up the field. While we walk that space, watch what the other 20 players do. They walk that space. So essentially, you've taken 10 yards for your entire team. That's a big win. Every time you can do that, that's a big win and maintain possession and get a game restart moment. The other side of this was I was very good dribbling. I was very fast at dribbling, and I was good skills with my feet. So I could also create game restart moments, not just from the sideline, but from fouls. So I knew whenever I would attract 2 players, if I were to pin the ball long, if I was already in front of them, I should say behind them, headed towards goal, then I could attract a foul. Because if one of the 2 was going to try to shoulder me, the other one was going to try to obstruct me. And all I had to do was wait for the obstruction. And I'm a small guy. So I'm not ashamed to say that whenever I felt contact in those situations and I knew I couldn't maintain possession, I took my foul. I went down.
That's football, though. You're playing the game not only with your feet, but with your head.
I'm creating chances because now that free kick is a service into the box and a goal. Possible goal. And that's why you always hear me as a coach saying to the wingers, get something out of it. Get us something. Because I utilize the sideline, the goal line, and my dribbling abilities to create game restart moments as often as I could. Whether I created goal or throw-ins, corner kicks, fouls from any of those areas, I would create success because I got us something. And then to go into a little bit of detail, what we talked about before was like I knew that I could risk a lot with the ball in order to create those moments. I didn't have a fear of losing the ball. I was confident enough to try over and over again. And I remember one of my teammates and goalkeepers at the time would say, like, dude, whenever the ball arrives to your feet, I know you're going to turn and go, and it just looks like this little munchkin going into the house of 3 guys and somehow crawling his way out with the ball, and then off you go. Like, and that's what it felt like. I was a little scrapper. Like, get the ball at my feet, give me the pressure, and in that moment is when I did my magic. Well, I don't know what would happen, but I would fight, scrap.
It sounds like you were a street baller when you were younger, and you were accustomed to being in those moments, in those situations, and then you maybe not knowing what the solution was when it happened, but you just seeing the problems come at you and just solving the problems as they went.
Only when I had the ball. Because when I didn't have the ball, the amount of running that I did, and structural running, this is where my coach wanted me now, here, and then, was immense. Like, off the ball, dude, I think I was probably running one of the most on my team because I ran track, cross country, but I had that position where I was expected to go up and down the line. That running wins games as well. When wingers can come back and pick the pocket of opponents and recover possession and turn the whole phase on its head, that moment is a relief for all the other players as you just transitioned into attack. So the work I did off the ball was a lot of the reason I think that I started and played a significant amount of minutes. I used to pride myself as a winger about how many fullbacks or players I could go through.
That's a pretty cool stat.
If I could go through more than 2, I knew I did a lot of running because you would normally have 2 players in one position if they had a lot of players on their team. But if I went through 3 or sometimes 4, and these guys were having to stay with me, and I loved to run during that time.
And it sounds like the coach was trying to find solutions for the problem that you caused to their team.
Well, I would make 10 runs and be okay with getting 3 of them. I would, and in the 3 that I got, I would work.
Let's talk about that because that is something that
so much as a winger, you don't get the ball.
I feel like that is something that is
like if you don't like it, don't do it.
It's lacking in teams like the runs with no intention to get in the ball. Because what happens when you make that run as a winger?
You drag space. You drag opponents. You create space in which you drag them from, and also give options to the player with the ball, and as well as creating space for yourself to check back into if the option wasn't met. I mean, there's no reason not to.
And then let's talk about their defensive line. Their defensive line gets stretched further deeper. Now your striker maybe can make an earlier run, and he can be onside because of the defender you just pulled out there.
Yeah, and I see even at the pros, like you make that run, you don't get played, you're offsides, but you were a decoy, you created space. Now you could have a checking player into that space, a different player, pick up an intermediate pass. That intermediate pass can go through to the 9. But as it goes through to the 9, the whole line drops off, and you, as the initial winger who made the run, you now become onside because you played a 9, and now the 9 comes in. Now they've completely forgot about your position. They're worried about the threat at hand, which is the 9.
The ball.
Boom, off you go, and you're creating a great advantage or moment to score for yourself. So it doesn't matter if you make a run, you end up offside. It doesn't matter because if you don't get that run made sometimes, you're never going to end up on the other side of the opponent's final line.
You're never going to stretch them.
What is the whole objective of football? As quoted by Francisco at Barca, one of my favorite coaches ever. So I'm just trying to get behind you. What? Yeah, that's all football is.
Pause.
What? That's all it says. I'm just trying to get behind you.
That sounds like such a Spanish thing to say.
But it is. It's true. I'm just trying to get behind you. I just need the ball to get behind you. That's my only job. That's how I win this game. I got to get this thing behind you. And so when you're thinking about that and you're thinking about making runs as a winger, you should be thinking about how do you get the opponents to turn around. Because every time you get them to turn around, you create pressure on them, anxieties
and
on
problems. Imagine if they aren't able to move their hips in the correct way, then they fall down.
And in possession, you're supposed to expand the space. How can you do that if you don't ever get behind the final line, which is usually where the most space is when the game is transitional or in possession moments. Like, they're going to try to squeeze your space. Why wouldn't you try to stretch it? So as a winger, my job became making 10 runs, 11 runs, 12 runs, and maybe even in a row without getting the ball. But now this fullback, he's having the worst time of his life because he has to run with me every single time. And on the 13th time, when he decides to hesitate, or like, oh, this guy ain't getting the ball, last 12 times he didn't get the ball, go. And the same reason, if we go 12 times, 10 times, whatever, and he's running with me, on the 13th time I could say, change it, check in, first time, angle pass.
He's
playing my game.
He's already going 5 yards because he thinks, oh, my boy's already making that run.
Game because he knows, shoot, this guy's running. But now he's thinking about my consistent actions, and I know he's thinking about me doing those consistent actions. And when I choose to change it, I can create advantage. Or even like a game of rock, paper, scissors, I could keep pressing rock and it'll work.
It's funny because Mbappe, there's that video of Mbappe doing that to that Polish defender where he just did that little flinch and the Polish defender already started running. He's like,
and then he's other way.
Like, but you got to start those mind games in the beginning.
That's right.
Why do you think the defender flinched in the first place? Is it because you watched clips of Mbappe? Or
no, it's because he was expecting him to run because he's been running.
He knows.
Yeah.
He's been conditioned as if he's like an animal. Like, oh, I know that whenever this action happens, I got to start running. So he's been conditioned for it. You have to be playing those mind games and that psychology early with the opponent.
Yeah, and just thinking about the winger, in depth, I feel like it is a common theme or acceptance that wingers are supposed to be really good at their one-on-one abilities. They have to be able to create advantages in that moment. And it's just about, it's not even getting past them and then keep going and creating another 20, 30 yards of space. Beating an opponent doesn't always have to look like that. If you play me into the corner flag and I'm tucked into the corner, it's a one-on-one moment with this guy who's pressing me into the corner. If I can just create this amount of space away from him, I can serve that ball into the box. If I can get him to cover the goal line, thinking that I'm going to play a near post ball, I can then cut and play a 45 ball to the top of the box, and we can finish from there. It's truly more about creating that gap to get something out of it, right? And so, like, I always thought to myself as a winger, each time that I get to interact with the ball, I need to make sure that I create positive progression. We're moving up the field. And then I create some sort of goal-scoring opportunity, whether it was a throw in higher positions, a corner, an assist, a cross that could create an assist, or a chance to score on my own, which I can admit, as a player, I lack the ability to score and shoot. So I focused on assisting. How do I generate roles and positions and progressions in a manner in which puts me in a place to set up my teammates to score?
That's a beautiful thing that you're saying, because
I love that role.
Because people sometimes don't know what their role is in the team, and they may feel lost, and they may feel that they can help the team. But you have to, as a player, believe in yourself to find a role and then play that role to the best of your ability. Because as a coach, what else could you ask for besides if he can play his role and still help the team, even though he may not be the fastest, the strongest, or even the best player?
You know what you're getting at him. You can use him in that place. Check.
And you know it's going to happen. And
the same goes for your teammates we were talking about earlier, is when they know the tempo at which you usually play and or the ways that you're trying to play the game, what you're looking for, it can help them know when and where to move to support you. So again, I said I had that relationship with my 9. I had that relationship with my fullback. As a winger, they knew I was trying to get into positions to assist. When I was driving to the goalkeeper in that moment where people thought, is he going to shoot, is he going to pass? There wasn't a question in my 9's head. He knew I was going to pass. In fact, most of my team knew. There was no question. They knew that if I was in that moment, Zach wasn't going to finish it in this one. He was going to drag this guy, and go dink dink so you can touch it.
And you were talking about the relationship with your 9, him being aware that, the defenders, where are they going to go with? They're going to go with the ball.
You dribble, you attract.
So then I need to make an angle so that Zach can know where to play me, and then I get my goal, Zach gets his assist, we're all happy.
He was so good at that too. He was great at being in the right place at the right time with a quality technical finish. Just nothing crazy. No, actually, probably scored one of the craziest goals I saw in real life on one of my teams. But most of his goals were clinical, poached, like in the right place, with the right technique, to the right spot, passed it to the net, as we would say at Barcelona, with quality. And like that's what I look to create. I look, as a general sense, as a winger, I look to create opportunities for my team to score and move up the field. But I did that by maintaining possession of the ball, but arguably, like with this mindset of constant progression. Whether I was using game restart moments of the sideline or taking on fouls, or trying to create corner kicks as we got further up the field. It was something that I utilized those spaces really well, those lines, those dictations, like to create those advantages. And for example, you imagine you're going down the line at full speed. You have this guy, fullback, he's coming into you here. Sometimes it's a double, one coming from the center gap. Like, you don't actually need to expect to get the ball on the other side if you're moving at full speed, and so are they. But it would be ideal if it did get on the other side. So a lot of the time, as these two players were coming, before they arrived, I would flick the ball at full speed up and over and through to the other side of the space. And then I didn't really have to worry about the ball at full speed anymore. The ball was already moving past the line. If I could break these two lines and look at it more now like a football game, I don't get tackled. I need to get through this gap with my body.
You don't just get Brexited by four legs.
So we're there. It's not as easy as it sounds.
And you best believe that those guys are about to come at you.
I would get laid out more times than I would split the gap. But arguably, you win a foul, or if they don't hit you and you make it through, you beat two and off you go. Now you create a 2v1 against the center back with your striker. I also use this trick at a dead stop. Anytime I was at a dead stop and two players would come here, there would be two pressing at that moment right before which one decides is actually going to press you, and I would flick the ball up in the air right between their arms into that V space where two players are pressing you with open bodies. There's a V space,
and their leg are up,
and their arms are here, their legs are there, and I would flick it right there between like the bottom of their hand and their shoulders, and immediately jump through that gap with the ball. So I'd like literally flick, and jump.
That sounds like an American football type thing, but
an interesting technique that whenever I'm at a dead stop and these two players are here and I flick it through there, their hands or their bodies are going to obstruct me. Their hands are probably going to obstruct the ball, handball, my ball. But they're hit my body and I don't get through, foul. So both of those I'm banking on a game restart moment. If neither happens and I get through the gap, 2v1 beat. I use this concept similarly in the first situation a lot, because if I flicked it past them, sometimes I wouldn't even have to try to beat them through the gap. It would ricochet off of them, it'd be a throw. So again, there's ways to utilize those lines in your benefit as a winger.
Instead of your detriment, because what is the opposite? Use the defensive line, use the line as an extra defender, and force the winger over there. You change your relationship of, instead of that being something that's gonna hinder me, it's gonna be.
It's never been a disadvantage to me. It's always been, as a winger, an advantage to me. If I played fullback, I would feel the line maybe as an advantage to me, where I could squeeze this winger against it. But since I grew up playing winger, I just don't see it that way. I see the line being my best friend. And anytime I'm there, it gives me more opportunities to risk a little bit more. I can do aggressive flicks. I can throw the ball right at them. I can be this more penetrative force. Because any kind of ricochet or rebound ends up back in my possession.
Bang.
Anything that ends up past them is part of my intention. And so I'll end up there. any obstruction in that action creates a foul, which is a free kick. So as I'm in that area with the line here and pressure here, although it may feel like you're tucked in between two maintainings of possession, and if I could beat this guy one-on-one, great. But that doesn't always mean I have to, me and the ball, get past him. I could just get the ball past him and I could create a foul from that moment right there and then. And so you have to be aware and make good decisions in each situation. And that's probably my most common statement as a coach in football.
In every position, no?
Yeah.
Like,
you have to be good at making decisions in each and every situation. You will hear me say this like a broken record of vinyl on repeat, because I truly believe each moment of each game you have to, like a chess match, make the right decision. And there are ramifications or bonuses, or how you could say, for lack of a better word, for that decision that you made.
So now that you talked about the decision of what to do as a winger, and I guess decisions in general that wingers can make to better their game, I want to talk about a decision that a team could make whenever they're facing trouble in the counterattack. And I was going to ask you, as a winger, how many times did you find yourself on the counter, on the break, and just seeing that big guy just clatter you through the back and him receiving a yellow card?
Oh, yeah, so you're talking about a professional foul in this moment?
Of course.
I don't feel like from behind, I wasn't hit from behind very often.
You were side on?
In arguably, like, a side on or head first, like, boom, head first. There were moments where I was in on goal and clearly just taken out right before the box as a professional foul. At those times, still now, it's a red card, but the opportunity that you receive after it, especially if they got you right before the box, is nowhere near as golden as if you could have finished in the run of play, or as if you made it in the box and received a penalty kick.
And then imagine, let's talk about how frustrated you get as a winger once that action happens, and once the other team took away that action from you.
Yeah, no, it's a frustrating experience. You get very angry at it because you were just about to score. And not only that, usually when you're moving at that speed and you get hit, it's a really hard hit. Like, you either get hit hard or you hit the ground hard.
It's violent. It's violent.
And so you get there and you get up and you realize, okay, well, if he doesn't get a red, I'm beyond pissed. Because if he gets yellow, he keeps getting playing this game. He did the dirty for you.
He got his cake.
He got to eat it too.
Ooh.
Which is like, I'm sitting here now with a free kick from 22 yards out with this complete gash on my arm, and he's still on the field, and I gotta try to score from 22 with the keeper and a wall in front of me. He won. And that's where professional fouls are smart, when you're in the mid tier of the field, the middle third, or zone
if you have an 18 space field layout,
I don't think about it like that.
You'll see that the zone 10, 11, and 12 are areas where, or the 25, or the C zone as you would like to call it.
Yeah, it's B and C.
They're areas where it's alright to give up a foul. At least for me, I will actually encourage a foul to stop the momentum, because psychologically, the other sideline gets upset, the parents get upset, the coach, the player on the field gets upset, and your team is like, hey, we're all right.
Yeah, and
we
it's
can
well
set
within
up
the jurisdiction and laws of the game. So there's nothing that keeps you from doing it. And I feel like in the center of the field, you don't normally get a red card for doing it. So it can be, and kind of is, a very smart play. A professional foul is a smart thing to do.
I like the way that you're calling it, because it's a professional thing that you do, because you're mitigating the risk from the other team.
I was at a game very recently where we were on a breakaway, top level game, top level players, like semi-level youth players. We're on a breakaway and the keeper comes out to take on this forward that's on a breakaway. And as this is happening, a recovering defender isn't coming towards the ball, he's going behind the keeper. He's on a dead sprint trying to get behind the keeper on the line right before the keeper can make this tackle with the fullback. With our striker, I apologize. So literally, the center back that was way beaten with the pass, way out of place, is hoofing it to get behind the keeper as the keeper's hoofing it towards him to press the forwards on the breakaway. The center back gets behind the keeper and turns just as the keeper clatters this forward.
Oof.
What happens?
He's not the last defender.
He's not the last defender. It's a yellow card for the keeper. Keeper can go right back into the net. The free kick can be taken from 30 yards out. The entirety of the opponent's team can get behind the ball. And my striker is severely hurt at this moment.
So one of the details...
Win.
One of the big details
for them,
that is in the defensive transition, meaning when our team loses the ball and we now have to defend... If your teammate running, if your teammate reacting in that moment and just getting caught in the indecisiveness or the moment of what just happened, what's the other team doing? They're gaining ground on you.
Yeah, every millisecond, every half second.
Every little thing that you take.
And it's a lot of space, and we know that space equals time, and for me, space and time equal quality in football. So if you have space, you should have time. And if you have time, you should have quality, both in your decisions and your technical execution of your actions. That is what I firmly believe.
And I think top players in our defense, and the defenses that I like to structure in my teams, they need to be aware, first of all, of where our players are in relation to them, and what structure we're making with the ball, but without having the ball. If that makes sense. It is a German ideology or idea called Restverteidigen. And Restverteidigen stands for the rest defense, meaning the players that are not playing with the ball, but let's say we're playing in the opponent's half, how do they look? Are they spread out and still asking for the ball? Or are they compact and making sure that if the other team is going on a counter, we're protecting the middle space, and if they go to the wide space, we can recover because the time that the ball takes to get to that wide space is enough time for us to be able to get back into shape, maybe delay, make sure all of our team gets back to shape, and now we're in a solid defensive structure.
No, and yeah, Barca has within their methodology a similar concept. I'm actually looking at it right here. It's like, okay, how do we form our position for the sense of recovery in zone A to B, B to C, C to D? And how do they differ? And then within that same understanding, how do we position ourselves in zone A to B, zone B to C, zone C to D in possession? And let's just imagine you're in possession in zone C to D, you're offensively attacking. There's a sense of, you should also have like a sense of recovery in C to D going on at the same time. The formation that you create should match in those two phases. Does that make sense? So when you're attacking into C and D, that shape that you create that expands yourselves into width and not so necessarily depth forward but depth back also is a shape that is prepared in a way to recover possession in higher positions rather than lower, to stop the counter from occurring in the first place.
These are the details that maybe at our levels don't get talked about enough because it's something that is so complex and so.
You hear it in a general sense, though. You hear coaches say, "Keep him here, keep him here, keep him here." They don't know where to place the pieces on the chessboard in order to generate that behavior action a little more. But they have the sense of, keep them here, keep them here. We want to keep the ball in the game here. But the details players probably don't receive is in order to do that, you need to be positioned here because when they recover it, they'll be looking for the 9 in a target location centrally. And it won't be that 9 winning it one-on-one up in the air against 2 opponents and then turning and getting through. It'll be the second man underneath him that receives it, and you need to be in a position close to both apply pressure to the 9 as the long ball comes out, but also apply pressure to the second man who's going to be coming underneath him to control and play. Just allowing them to even play in behind the final line. And the thought we had at Barca was like not necessarily a tried and true 6-second rule, But it was like that. We had a formation that we would place ourselves in when attacking in deep positions, often to counterattacks, to recover possession in high positions.
And doing it in a way where you're not conceding a foul.
Well, yes, and our main thought was realistically we don't want them to play this ball 60 yards back. Because now that's 120 yards we're going to have to run just to get back to where we were right now. 60 to go get it, 60 to come back. And that to us is the work we do with possession. We could do it, but that's the work that we do, so that's where we're expending our energy. We don't want to have to do that over again if we're already here in this space. We would want to just stay in this space, keep our shape, and let the ball do the moving while we bring them out to try to get back in again. Bring them out, try to get back in again. We want to keep the whole thing here, and every time that it goes, we're going to have to press the reset button, and we're expending a lot of energy to press that reset button. So the better we talk, or the more details we talk about the shape that we should have to negate their ability to do that is important. So again, there's actually 6 kind of phases when you think about, or it's not 6 phases, but 6 formational senses that you should think about in the Barca methodology. And it's both possession and recovery of the zone A to B, B to C, and C to D, which creates 6 phases to think about. That creates your system, right? Because formation is what you start your chips in. It's like starting positions. And system is what it turns into in the run of play and in the different moments and situations of the game.
And how the players react to each of those.
Yeah, and their instructions in which they've been given by you.
Exactly.
Which lead to those changes, right? And so I think talking like a little bit about that stuff is really important with your team, but it is something that arguably is better taught in a video session, in a quick 15-minute video session. This is how I want you guys to shape and look. And then as you get into the season, you start practicing those moments, and when they see moments of success and failure of that moment, then you can start to actually bring it back up in film sessions.
Oh, and you get into even more detail once they can first see it on the film, see it in the game, and see how they react to it, and then how can we adjust? How can we adapt? It even
constructs a better thought when you show them just blank, beginning of the season, like PowerPoint presentation with just images of their shirts where they need to be. And then 2 months later, you're in a game and you show it, and it's an actual game in a film session, and they can see it in person, and they go, he knows what he was talking about, that makes sense, there's the experience, this is what I need to do. Check, 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 and then they start to kind of do the behavior, execute the action, or be in the right space a little more often, which leads to success, you know. The more details, the better, I think, for your team. I've been fighting even the concept of overstimulation. The way I speak now is the way I speak to my players when I'm on the team. Go, 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 go. I got a lot to get out, and you got to pick up what's important. And I try to concise that as much as I can, but in my opinion, the more details we could talk about and make understood, it's just not about details, it's not about just talking to talk, it's about the understanding, the education you transfer into that team, into that player. Then I feel like the better equipped they're going to be when having to make all those decisions when the game is on, and arguably the less that I'll actually have to speak when we arrive to the game day. Because it is a test.
Oh no, and that's
I don't
the
want
dream.
to be given answers.
That's the dream
I
as
want
a
to watch
coach.
them do their due.
Being able to let our team become automatic, but without us, because that shows that they grow as a family and grow like as a whole group together. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you need those 1 or 2 players that can, keep the team in line, because at this day and age, with the teams that we have, boys are boys. And boys will always be boys.
Boys will be boys.
And you saw it in a game that you were covering when one of your players went down for an injury.
Yeah, man. It was kind of like, I had said it, I think, last week on the podcast, whatever it was, but this was like a true representation of its application in life. And you sit on the boys' sideline, like 15, 16-year-old boys, and one goes down, and immediately the bench jumps up, starts moving. Coach, I'm ready. I'm like, you haven't even decided to look to see if he's gonna be okay. Like, you're ready to go. I got you guys. And I'm watching the kid, and they're just like, Coach, I feel like, you can make this up. Like, make this up. And
they're pressuring you.
They're biting. They're chomping at the bit to get on the field. They care about that. They really care about themselves in a way that they need to get these minutes to feel validated and vindicated on what they're doing for the team. And also, recently I've been spending some experiences watching ECNL girls games as I've been in that environment. And in that same moment for the girls teams, they're incredibly supportive of it, in checking on her and, hey, you're okay, hey, you're good, that was a good moment. Girls are very supportive and initially, internally care for said other. And I didn't come to that thought on my own. I was sitting on the bench and I had said it out loud, man, you're sitting on a boys' bench and they're out for blood, they're preying on your downfall so they can get some minutes. You're sitting on the girls' bench and they're incredibly supportive and vocally there for you, and that's the difference. And the sideline ref starts cracking up. He's an older guy, he's been around football clearly most of his life, and he goes, you don't know how much truth there is to that statement. He's like, I spend every week going up and down these sidelines, and that is spot on. He looks at me and he goes, but for one reason, and it's because young boys don't care about anything but themselves. And girls inertially care about others.
Dog.
And I'm
dog.
Bro!
You summed that up. You summed that up, and I was just waiting for that.
Blew my mind.
That's for the TikTok right there. You summed it up perfectly.
Blew my
you
mind.
You said the men, the little lads, it's all about us. And it's nice that at least our society still has those characteristics for women, because for me, a woman that is caring for other people is the best type of woman, because they don't care about themselves. They're selfless.
I'm not saying that boys aren't. I'm saying that most young men aren't. It's not initially.
I get majority.
It's just not initially normally inert in them. It has to be slowly developed and come to fruition, and I feel like it's a more inert thing in women just from simply sitting on the bench and hearing how positive and supportive that they are in that moment. And then arguably, I can't remember a single time where a boys team of mine in 10 years have been genuinely initially concerned for the player that went down.
And I think the thing that you
generally
said
initially ready for the new opportunity that just came up.
Yeah, and the way that you said it was perfect, because you said that they want to make sure that they can go on the field and prove to you what they're about and what they prepared and what they want to do.
Yeah.
So for them being on the bench, it was funny because I heard a Thierry Henry.
I heard that clip.
Yeah.
Spot on. I was thinking about
TikTok, man. TikTok is going crazy.
I don't use TikTok. But
you know what I refer to the reels, the shorts, all those are.
But he said something
TikToks.
when I was on the bench, it makes me feel like the coach feels like he can win without me.
Bam, spot on.
And that's probably how most boys are feeling when they're on the bench. They're probably feeling like they haven't met a certain mark.
Or that dude. There's no way that guy's starting over me because I can definitely do way better than him.
Resentment. Or there's that. Coach doesn't like me or doesn't pick on me and chooses. This belongs there too, because you, at that age, you have to come up with a reason. You don't usually at that age as a young male look in the mirror. That kind of has to be slammed in front of you as a young male, and that you have to look and reflect. And so
that's a tough thing to do though, because like you said, they're just so
that's part of your job as the head coach, is to help those young men learn how to reflect on themselves and look in the mirror before they point the finger, in order for them to be their best selves. And until they learn the reflection process and maybe even a bit more social awareness, to think about others more and to reflect on themselves more, is when we start to see maturity in males occur.
I had a cover where I was doing for a same age group as yours, the 2014 9-year-olds, and it was a lower team, but that had a couple quality players on there, and there was one quality player that he was a good dribbler, and he was a center mid. And you can imagine a good dribbler at that age wants to show his dribbling to the crowd, and to the team, and to the other team.
Yeah, that's where they get their excitement and have
so,
their fun.
And so this kid was so good at dribbling that the first goal he took around the whole team. He took the goalie and then just tapped it in.
Yeah.
And I'm just going like, oh, well, hey, bravo, well done, you know? And like, I was just, being the cover coach, you don't really know who these players are and who these people are. So I just keep hearing Ronaldo, and his name's not Ronaldo. But I'm just like, okay, so he's that type of ego player that believes that he can take on everyone, albeit context, 9 years old. A 9-year-old already has this belief that, oh, he's going to do this, he's going to do this, he's going to do this. So I'm thinking to myself,
what level was the league?
They were either Flight 2 or Flight 3.
So what happens when you put them in a Flight 1 game?
So hold up, let me finish. These guys, he's known for only dribbling the goalie. Like, if he has a chance to take a shot, he's going to try and dribble the goalie. So I had to think of a way to encourage him to start doing something else. And I said, all right, you know what you're going to do? You are going to take a shot from outside the box. It has to be on frame. That's your goal for today. You know what he did the second half? He picked up a short corner, 2v1, and he's like on the byline. And he's barely outside the box. And he just goes curler into the back post. And he's going, screaming, like going crazy.
See, there you go. That works.
And I was like, you know what? I'm not counting that one.
Count it.
I ain't counting that one.
What?
Because
I feel bad for you, young man.
No, I don't. I definitely did not, because I didn't count. I was like, dude, that wasn't good enough. I want one that's like you dribbled in front of the box and then you actually hit it in front.
He listened to all the rules. He accomplished his task. He's outside the box. He didn't have to beat the keeper. He shot it from outside. That shows a very smart player.
I didn't accept that.
My thought is that kind of player needs to then go into higher level football competition, so then the action of being able to dribble around the keeper gets taken away.
I agree with that.
And once he can't do it anymore, then he has to expand outside of what he can already do.
And I don't think I can. I don't think I want to talk.
No, as a cover coach, it's not
about,
your place.
No,
right?
And I don't even want to bring up the other side of the coin to that, because there's so many dynamics to the world that we are in.
Oh yeah.
So I just want to say that kid needs to be able to play the role that he can bring to the team. And if he's gonna be in the box with the ball,
you gotta shoot.
Please.
Like,
Like, there's no need to show off what you can do, because what do you gain from that? What is he gaining besides the fact that he already knows that he can do that?
Very
and
little.
Just being a ego-driven,
very
little child.
Yeah, no, very little, and I think the team loses out on that as well. A little bit of the development as well.
So let me full circle this. We end up losing the game, and he had a couple chances where he tried to dribble the goalie and he didn't make the goal. And imagine if he would have put those 2 or 3 away in the beginning of the game. 3-0, put the coffin in, and it was a away fixture, or like a reverse fixture, meaning that it was the second time that we had played this team. And I guess the first time that we played them, the team that I coached won. And so this time, one of our better players gets injured and has to be taken out. And now I have to switch the pieces of the team. We start losing. And now you can imagine the frustration of the team knowing that, oh, we already beat this team, how are we losing? And now you can feel the frustration and see it with the better players in the team, because they don't think that they deserve that. But it's like, buddy, who entitled you to give you the win today? What did you do today?
Before?
Yes. What did you do today to get the win? Just because you showed up?
Yeah, and that you beat them last time?
Menos.
Haven't earned anything today. Nothing at all.
And so, after the end of the game, this kid was so frustrated. And frustrated to the point where he almost didn't shake the other team's hand. And it was a very, very upsetting thing for me to see, especially at that age, because it's like how is this child being formed, not only by me who's covering the coach, the coach that is there the whole time, and then even, it sucks for me to say it, I'm sorry, the parent.
Yeah.
How does that reflect on them?
Poorly.
And it's something that I don't really like bringing up, but it's what happened, and it's like wow.
No, that is a negative situation to say the least.
And I'm glad that doesn't happen on my team, because I wouldn't know how to affect such a strong ego at that time. A strong ego that not only is a great player, but unfortunately, and the circumstances, the team needs to be able to play well.
Yeah, to succeed at this moment, for sure. No, it's not necessarily your place sometimes, you know?
Oh, at least as a cover coach? Of course not.
It definitely is not.
Of course not.
Far from.
Of course not.
No, it's far from in that situation.
Why wouldn't it be your situation to deal with if he is in your environment?
It is. To some regard, it is. Everything within your environment is your situation to manage. And among all things is just that, is like making sure that it's a positive learning experience and that a positive environment for kids or people to grow and learn in, and it's a positive social experience as well, and not a negative one in any regard or manner.
And going full circle with the podcast, that is what we are trying to do every single week. We have set a goal for ourselves to at least film every Monday.
Yeah, it's pretty hard so far.
Oof.
This is the 5th one, and it's been pretty hard.
We've had our setbacks, and we've had our little problems.
It's been hard. This is for the coffee lovers out there.
And I want to say that the goal that I have, not only completing the 52 podcasts in 52 weeks, it is, for me at least, seeing a statistic goal, at least that being 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, going big.
Strong.
Hitting the 10,000 subs.
That's really strong.
Maybe getting 100 likes on an episode, 500 likes on an episode. These are the statistics that I would like to see, that, you know, if after doing 52 podcasts, I'd be overly ecstatic if I saw those. And I wouldn't be that upset if I didn't see those, because those are big, lofty goals.
Yeah, those are big goals, for sure. And like we said, we want to talk about what is our goal with the podcast. Well, right now our goal with the podcast is, let's get 52 podcasts recorded in 52 weeks. Because that is an ambitious goal, to come together and speak about football 2 hours a week on camera and do our best to be presentable and orchestrate our conversation in a manner that is intellectual, informative, but also engaging,
and especially giving tools to the players.
We found ourselves pretty tired after each one. Surprisingly, too, I might add. We both been like, damn, I'm surprised.
We didn't think it was tiring. We didn't think that this process would actually take so much out of us. But how I'm seeing it, literally, you're this, I am the player, and you are the coach, and what we're doing right now is just, you're filling my cup with knowledge, so that on the weekend they have something that they can grab. And a little story that I have, we have our Instagram at Train Zone Sports. We're trying to upload reels and little bits of our big long form content into short form content that you guys can take bite size and have that on your Instagram saved. I had one of my players on my team watch one of my reels that we filmed, and in our analytics we're able to see who saves it, and we actually had 2 saves on that video. He told me that he was one of them, and he told me that he was listening to that video on repeat before the game. And I'll tell you, not to hype this guy up, but he had 2 golden opportunities to score goals, which he rarely does have, which he hasn't scored a goal this season. And for him to get into those positions means that, for me, he was confident enough to try and confident enough to go for it. And he was able to do that. I'm not saying just because of us, but he was encouraged to do that because we gave him that tool to be like, go for it, my friend.
Yeah, so that's impact. And to go back to the goals that we have for the podcast, that's mine. That's my goal, is impact. So the manner at which, how and how often you impact players in a positive way is kind of my measurement of success for the podcast. I think like eventually in half a year when we're down that road, I'll start looking at analytics as followers and subscribers with a much more realistic like outlook of what can be and what is. But that's not my goal, nor is it my main focus. I feel like just as being a coach, it's always been how much positive influence and impact can you make by the conversations that you have and the players in which you connect with. And this is one way to connect with players that just in that experience can create a positive impact in their playing experience. And one measurement to track that is just time watched. Like for me, I like seeing how much accumulative hours time watched each video has made, and that even boils down to how much each time somebody clicks to it, like how long they stayed on it before clicking off of it. And it doesn't account for the whole minute and 30 seconds, whatever it was, it's just for the 45 seconds they stayed on to it, and it can show me when and where they clicked in and clicked out. That to me is retention and influence and impact. And my goal would be to get to see those numbers increase. The more time watched, the more impact that each short clip or long clip really does for a player, and the more you hear full circle, like, hey, I listened to that one and I thought it was really good, it helped me in this situation. Like, I've heard that actually now 3 or 4 times just walking around the fields the last few weeks. 3 or 4 times now, and that's cool. Like,
it's awesome. That's why we're doing this.
You said something that helped me, and it was actually somebody I didn't know. So they knew somebody that I had coached, and they were with him, and they go, hey, I watched that. I'm like, wow. That's impact. That's expanding itself into new branches to be able to influence and help others. So for me, my goal is to continue to hopefully focus on that, the retention and the importance of the information we're sharing. And it's funny that I say that because I watch these things back. I edit the long one. I listen to each one over and over again, maybe twice before they go up. And I hear myself and I sometimes think, man, you gotta just stop talking. Like, I'm sick of hearing yourself talk. Right? But then again, I know that this is exactly where those golden nuggets, they do come out of as well. And so, like, I hope that people do take something positive from the time that we come together and we talk about football, because I know from my experience there are things in here that we will talk about and have talked about that will benefit the player. And it's simply just from a matter of hearing about others' experiences. That's how life works.
And we're also trying to adapt the way that we deliver this, because for the viewers that like the long form, we're going to get really into the nitty-gritty details of the overall topic that we're talking about, which is something that we tried today, and I think we really got in depth with the concept that we're talking about.
B+.
Okay. But I lost it.
We were talking about.
I lost it.
We were talking about how we did a good job at following our plan of action.
Okay. We want to get really detailed in the long form to then also summarize whatever we said, and then giving that on the short form so you can see that on your YouTube's shorts, on your Instagram reels, on your TikTok, so that you can have these little bite-sized nuggets like you were talking about.
Yeah, and hopefully starting in November, our marketing team will be all over getting those things in and out, and so we'll have those services and those accounts live to where you'll be receiving clips and short things of information, hopefully daily, if not bi-daily. Not bi-daily, every other day. that would be a good goal to have as well for November, and things for players to create more impact and more people to come in and view our channel and watch the podcast.
What else is coming in November? Do we have anything special coming up?
Well, the high school season starts, and so that'll be interesting. We are working on a group session that we put together for players of all ages from younger to older, and we're still working on a contract with the field, but it is something that we want to put into place when or if is possible. So that's something to look forward to.
If you're interested in seeing more about the group sessions, if you want to have the first insight of knowing when we have the registration open, at Train Zone Sports, at ZJ Kaizen, if you want to get in directly touch with him, at Coach JCKM. You can get in direct touch with us. We will let you know the insights of when we plan on doing this. So if you want to make sure that you get a spot, message us. Please subscribe on our YouTube at Train Zone Sports. That's going to be spaces between the words. Like, hit that bell notification after you subscribe. Go follow his account, follow my account. If you want to see the reels, check out Train Zone Sports.
This is Pitchside Prospects. We're coming to you on Mondays every week and hopefully giving you good information about the game, about the beautiful game and everything within it. We hope to see you as subscribers and coming back to us each week. And this was the last thing I had. If you are a young coach who's starting to coach within the game and you're in Southern California and you want to connect yourself with other young coaches to see about how to get networking going, communications going, experiences, if you want to be a part of our team, please feel free to reach out. It's something where we want to expand the people that we have within our team that are within the game. So if you are a young coach and you're kind of tuning into what we're doing, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you and see what you're about and how we can maybe help each other. Would be cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening and tuning in. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Auf Wiedersehen.
Adios.